The air in the royal majlis hung thick with the scent of oud and the soft murmur of 100 conversations, each one a shimmering thread in the opulent tapestry of the royal betrothal. Zara sat, a still point amidst the glittering currents, the heavy gold and ivory decor of the vast hall a suffocating embrace. Chandeliers, like inverted galaxies, cast a golden haze over the throng of guests, their laughter and whispered greetings forming a distant, impenetrable hum. Her elegant wheelchair, crafted of dark wood with silver details, felt less a conveyance and more a throne of isolation. She was there, yet utterly unseen, a ghost at her own family's celebration. Her expressive brown eyes, usually alight with an inner fire, now held a deep, quiet ache, reflecting the forgotten corners of her soul. She traced the intricate patterns on her silk scarf, the coolness of the fabric a small anchor in the surging warmth around her. The melodic strains of a traditional oud quartet, weaving through the grand arches, seemed to mock her stillness, each note a reminder of movement denied, of a world that danced on without her. Her dark, long hair, usually a cascade, was pulled into a low, elegant bun, a conscious effort to appear composed, controlled. But beneath the facade, a storm of silent emotion raged, a yearning for connection that felt utterly out of reach in this grand, indifferent space. She watched a young cousin twirl with an easy joy, a stark contrast to her own motionless form. A wave of profound loneliness washed over her, chilling her despite the warmth of the crowded room. She had become an ornament, beautiful perhaps, but devoid of purpose, a part of the scenery. She yearned for a glance, a simple acknowledgement, anything to break the invisible wall that had risen around her since the accident. Then, a voice, soft as a desert breeze, cut through the clamor. It was an unexpected melody in the symphony of her solitude. "Why are you sitting by yourself, my dear one?" Jasmine peeked through the curtain. Raymond sat front row, nodding. Her father's wheelchair had been rolled in, a blanket over his legs. Robert Langley's face was still, eyes open and watchful. That was enough. A low chime. Kevin lowered the lights. A spotlight washed the stage. Maya walked out in a soft blouse and black slacks. No tray, no uniform, quiet and commanding. Whispers rippled. Moon River began, stripped to piano and strings, slower, haunting. Jasmine rolled from stage left, hands trembling, and reached center. Maya held out both hands. Jasmine placed hers on top. They moved, not a traditional dance, but perfect sync. Maya's measured steps, Jasmine's upper body mirroring, fingers fluttering like wings. When Maya tapped the stage, Jasmine echoed the rhythm on the wheelchair frame. Mid-verse, Maya guided Jasmine through a tiny pirouette with her chair. It transformed everything. Not a girl in a wheelchair, but a dancer reclaiming the floor. At the final note, Jasmine extended a hand. Maya kissed her fingers. Silence, then applause that rose from the heart. Raymond first to stand, then others, even kitchen staff who'd slipped in. Cynthia remained seated. Backstage, Jasmine exhaled, shaking with adrenaline. "You did it," Maya whispered, kneeling. "No," Jasmine said through tears. Raymond entered with Mrs. Bennett and Mr. Traz. Mr. Traz cleared his throat. Maya raised a hand. They blinked. Raymond handed a packet. A Langley-funded proposal, the still-moving project, adaptive arts, dance therapy, mentorship across Texas, led by Maya. Mrs. Me motioned to approve, seconded, approved. Later, Jasmine wheeled to her father's suite, played a clip. Robert's eyes filled. His fingers tightened on hers. She asked. She pressed her forehead to his hand. The battle wasn't over, but tonight something shifted. 3 weeks later, the Langley Community Center hosted the first adaptive workshop. The drab meeting hall shimmered with lights and murals. A line formed outside, children with braces, grandmothers with walkers, teens in silence whose eyes found the music. Maya, in a deep blue cardigan, prosthetic visible, welcomed each person by name. Jasmine organized registrations quicker, assured. Raymond arrived with muffins and joked about managing snacks. Volunteers taped mats, nurses stayed. A security guard DJ'd sheepishly. When music began, hesitation dissolved. Maya guided rhythm with claps. "Hands up!" Jasmine moved through the room, encouraging. She offered a hand to a young girl. The girl twirled. Her mother wept. Mid-session Moon River played by local musicians. They danced, this time a ripple through the room as others swayed. Robert sat near the wall, his hand lifting in an echo of their old waltz. The project grew. Local media came. Jasmine felt alive, purpose filling her days, planning, volunteers, grants, invisible victories. But momentum stirred old dust. Cynthia warned, some board members see this as a sideshow, waiting for a slip to reclaim control. You've built this fast, she said. Jasmine leaned in. I've already fallen. Cynthia, oddly, offered a path. Attend the Langley Legacy Awards. Let the board see her play the game. They prepared. Kevin compiled footage. Maya recorded an intro. Volunteers rehearsed. At the awards, the stage was made accessible. Raymond introduced her. Not a product, but a promise. Video showed early therapy, the garden terrace, the community center. A line of dancers entered. Crutches, service dogs, a walker wrapped in streamers, rhythm claps, wheels on hardwood. Then a hopeful piano piece by a teen volunteer. It was reclamation. The applause thundered. Raymond announced unanimous funding for Still Moving under the Langley Foundation. Jasmine scanned the crowd for her father. Robert tapped his armrest. Her beat. A permanent studio opened months later. Mirrors, floors that welcomed wheels, portraits with participant quotes. Classes filled the week. Jasmine wheeled into the studio one morning. Robert insisted on visiting. I wanted to see the legacy, he said. You're looking at it, she replied. He gave her his wedding band. Warm, worn. Your mother used to tap this when nervous. Growth brought scrutiny. An article accused the program of PR strategy, questioned Maya's credentials, implied Jasmine's awards were nepotism. Funding votes stalled. A parent withdrew a child. Jasmine felt the momentum stutter. The floor doesn't care about headlines. Jasmine held a press conference in the studio, raw clips playing behind her. Real moments, not polished spin. She answered questions with honesty and invited reporters to meet participants. The tide turned. Parents returned. Donations resumed. Critics revisited assumptions. Months later, the Still Moving National Summit opened in Chicago with over 400 participants. Workshops explored rhythm through vibration, trauma-informed choreography, accessibility. Robert flew in despite frailty. Backstage, he gave Jasmine his ring. At the closing, the audience became performers. Jasmine watched Robert tap his armrest in rhythm and saw the legacy. Not power, but purpose. Backstage, tired and elated, she and Maya agreed to rest for a minute and then move again. Zara, fueled by new purpose, dove into planning the Royal Majlis transformation with Basim. Her father's fragile recognition affirmed her fight. The Majlis would become a platform for movement. Yet she longed for Samira, the woman who had ignited her rhythm. A rumor led Zara to a modest community center bright with murals. There, among a choir, stood Samira in a simple jilbab, humming, swaying. Relief flooded Zara. No explanations were needed. Their connection remained. I need one more dance, Samira, Zara said. Samira met her gaze, steady, fierce. The choir rose to a crescendo as Samira straightened, shoulders square with quiet, regal grace. A pact renewed. The world would indeed be watching. The desert night embraced Zara and Samira, the air crisp and clear, filled with the promise of a new dawn. Samira's gaze, steady and fierce, met Zara's, forging a pact that transcended words. The choir's crescendo, a vibrant pulse in the quiet evening, seemed to affirm their shared resolve. Samira, with a quiet, regal grace, straightened her shoulders, a silent declaration of purpose. The world would indeed be watching. Zara, fueled by this renewed connection and a surging sense of defiance, returned to the palace with a fierce determination. The transformation of the Royal Majlis, once a stifling symbol of her isolation, now consumed her thoughts. Basim, her young and eager palace assistant, became her co-conspirator, his enthusiasm mirroring her own. Together they meticulously planned. The heavy gold and ivory decor, the glittering chandeliers, the soft oud melodies, all would be reimagined, not removed, but recontextualized. The Majlis would become a stage, a platform for the very movement it had once seemed to deny her. Every architectural arch, every intricate mosaic, would echo with the rhythm of inclusion. She envisioned a space where every soul, regardless of perceived limitation, could find their beat. Her father's fragile recognition, that single, rough word, always, had affirmed her fight, igniting a fire within her that Najla's rigid protocols could no longer extinguish. She longed for Samira, the woman who had ignited this rhythm, who had dared to see beyond the veil of her wheelchair. A quiet rumor, a whispered hint, led Zara to a modest community center tucked away amidst the city's labyrinthine alleys. It was a place bright with murals depicting vibrant, abstract dancers, their forms fluid and free. There, among a choir whose voices swelled with ancient melodies, stood Samira. She wore a simple jilbab, her form swaying gently, humming a low, soulful tune. Relief, potent and overwhelming, flooded Zara's being. No explanations were needed. Their connection, a thread woven with unspoken understanding, remained unbroken, a resilient bloom in the desert's harsh embrace. Zahra's brown eyes, usually guarded, softened, reflecting the warmth radiating from Samira's calm presence. Samira swayed with the choir, a low, soulful hum that anchored Zara in a way the palace never had. Amid painted dancers and honest melodies, Zara felt safe, invited to unburden a soul that had carried too much. Samira, graceful despite her humble jilbab and the subtly visible prosthetic beneath, eased onto a plush cushion with a quiet sigh that drew Zara closer. The older woman's gaze was a silent permission to speak. The music's vibrancy gave way to a settled stillness, punctured only by distant city sounds. Zara breathed in the scent of dust and old books, a comforting contrast to the oud and opulence she knew. She began as a fragile whisper, then steadied, recounting the day the world shifted. Silver heels, teasing laughter at a gala, then a truck that ran a red light, the screech, shattering glass, the lurch that crushed her spine in 2 places and stole her ability to walk. The physical pain was immense, but the internal agony, feeling diminished, was heavier. 3 days later, stress took her father, Omar, the once booming Sheikh. A stroke hollowed his presence, his hands trembling, his speech lost in fog. Samira listened without interruption, her gaze a mirror of empathy. When Zara paused, trembling, Samira laid a calloused, gentle hand on her arm. She went on, quietly wise. Listen to the music within you, the rhythm of your spirit. Hear the echoes of who you were and the whispers of who you yearn to be. Her words unraveled Zara's despair, replacing it with a fragile hope, the sense that the dance was not over, but transforming. Past sorrows and perceived limits eased under Samira's insight. A veil lifted from Zara's perception. She looked at her hands, once certain of choreographic destiny, now seeing them afresh as conduits for a deeper rhythm. The sun dipped, casting long golden shadows across the murals, illuminating painted dancers as if they too answered Samira's truth. In that shared quiet, amid ancient songs and new understanding, Zara felt a stirring, a vow to seek the hidden music and reclaim the dance of her soul. This was a beginning, not an end, a quiet revolution in the heart of the city. Here, Zara felt safe, invited to unburden a soul that had carried too much. Samira, graceful despite her humble jilbab and the subtly visible prosthetic beneath, eased onto a plush cushion with a quiet sigh that drew Zara closer. The older woman's gaze was a silent permission to speak. The music's vibrancy gave way to a settled stillness, punctuated only by distant city sounds. Zara breathed in the scent of dust and old books, a comforting contrast to the oud and opulence she knew. She began as a fragile whisper, then steadied, recounting the day the world shifted. Silver heels, teasing laughter at a gala, then a truck that ran a red light, the screech, shattering glass, the lurch that crushed her spine in 2 places and stole her ability to walk. The physical pain was immense, but the internal agony, feeling diminished, was heavier. 3 days later, stress took her father, Omar, the once booming Sheikh. A stroke hollowed his presence, his hands trembling, his speech lost in fog. Samira listened without interruption, her gaze a mirror of empathy. When Zara paused, trembling, Samira laid a calloused, gentle hand on her arm. She went on, quietly wise. Listen to the music within you, the rhythm of your spirit. Hear the echoes of who you were and the whispers of who you yearn to be. Her words unraveled Zara's despair, replacing it with a fragile hope, the sense that the dance was not over, but transforming. past sorrows and perceived limits, eased under Samira's insight. A veil lifted from Zara's perception. She looked at her hands, once certain of choreographic destiny, now seeing them afresh as conduits for a deeper rhythm. The sun dipped, casting long golden shadows across the murals, illuminating painted dancers as if they, too, answered Samira's truth. In that shared quiet, amid ancient songs and new understanding, Zara felt a stirring, a vow to seek the hidden music and reclaim the dance of her soul. This was a beginning, not an end, a quiet revolution in the heart of the city. Zara asked, her voice barely a breath, her gaze fixed on the older woman's hands, imagining the stories they might tell. A soft, knowing smile touched Samira's lips, a distant memory igniting in her eyes. She shifted, revealing a glimpse of the sleek carbon fiber prosthetic beneath her jilbab, a silent testament to her own journey. "I was a tap dancer, Habibti," Samira confessed, her voice a low, resonant hum, "until 5 years ago when diabetes took my foot. But the rhythm, it never left me." She gently tapped a finger against her chest. Just as Zara leaned in, captivated by this intimate revelation, a sharp, authoritative voice cut through the tender moment. "Samira, what are you doing?" Najla, impeccably dressed in a structured abaya, her keffiyeh perfectly aligned, stood framed in the doorway, a clipboard clutched in one hand, her gaze a cold, disapproving challenge. The air thickened with unspoken tension, the warmth of their connection abruptly shattered by the stark reminder of their disparate worlds. Najla's presence was a calculated disruption, a quiet assertion of control. Samira, hand still on her chest where her rhythm lived, slowly lowered it. The glow in her eyes receded into a faint veil of resignation. She nodded once, a practiced dip of the head, then turned and picked up the empty tea tray she had set aside. Najla's gaze, cold and hard, tracked Samira's movements, ensuring compliance. As Samira moved toward the doorway, her prosthetic leg a quiet mechanism beneath the folds of her jilbab, Najla shifted to Zara. A precise, almost imperceptible smile touched her composed lips. No warmth, only calculation. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a low, silken whisper meant for Zara alone, but as cutting as a blade. "Princess Zara," Najla murmured, her tone a smooth veneer over disapproval. "We must maintain distinctions. Fraternizing with staff, however well-intentioned, breeds gossip, unsuitable for a lady of your standing, and certainly for the Sheikh's daughter. Appearances are paramount." She straightened, her keffiyeh impeccable, posture radiating untouchable authority. The implication was clear. Zara's actions could harm the family's carefully constructed image. A cold knot tightened in Zara's stomach, the familiar sting of Najla's quiet power. For years she had accepted this narrative, retreating into a gilded cage, defined by her chair. But Samira's words, her vulnerability, her presence, had ignited a spark deep within Zara. She watched Samira disappear, back straight, the tray held with an understated grace that made it a quiet protest, a dignified withdrawal. The rhythmic tap of Samira's prosthetic, barely audible on the polished floors, became a faint echo in Zara's mind, a beat of defiance. A memory rose unbidden, a younger Zara before the accident, twirling on a sunlit stage, dark hair a wild cascade, her body a symphony of motion. The joy and freedom of those moments contrasted sharply with the sterile quiet of now. She had let herself become an ornament, a silent fixture, accepting limits imposed by her body and by others, especially Najla. The weight of passive isolation, once a comfort, now felt smothering. Najla's gaze lingered, a silent assertion of victory. Then she moved away, her structured abaya rustling, leaving Zara alone amid the hushed opulence. The air, which had briefly held warmth, felt colder. Still, something had shifted irrevocably within Zara. The seed of rebellion, planted by Samira's wisdom and watered by Najla's cruelty, had taken root. She looked at her hands, no longer mere instruments of stillness, but conduits for a dormant power, a rhythm waiting to be released. The majlis, with its gold and ivory, felt less like a tomb and more like a stage, a challenge for a new dance, a different legacy. Samira's tap, distant, resonated with a promise. The air, charged with Samira's quiet resolve, pulsed with a rhythm Zara felt deep within her. a counterpoint to the distant thrum of Majlis festivities. A pact renewed indeed. The world would be watching. But for Zara, it had always watched a different daughter. She had been the still, observant counterpoint to her father, Omar, the sheikh whose booming presence once commanded every gilded room. His laughter, a rich symphony, would fill the palace, preceding him like a royal fanfare. Zara, even as a child, moved with a quiet grace, content to observe the grand theater of their lives from the edges, her expressive brown eyes absorbing every detail. She listened, she felt the subtle shifts, while Omar, a force of nature, shaped his world with voice and unwavering will. A poignant memory, delicate as desert lace, unfurled in her mind. Every New Year's Eve, a cherished ritual, they would waltz. Her father, grand in his bisht, would take her small hand, his booming voice softening to a tender murmur as the first notes of Moon River drifted through their private chambers. He would guide her, teaching the precise steps, the gentle turns, their feet barely brushing the Persian carpets. It was more than a dance. It was a conversation without words, a bond woven in movement and shared melody, a quiet promise between father and daughter. She remembered the feeling of his hand in hers, strong, reassuring, the dizzying joy of spinning in his arms, her dark hair a wild cascade. Those moments were etched into her soul, luminous, pure, defining their unique connection amidst palace formality. This year, for the royal betrothal, there had been a different, grander promise. Omar, in a rare moment of sentimentality, declared this celebration, marking a new family chapter, would host their most magnificent waltz. He had imagined it, she knew, the two of them gliding across the majlis, the center of all eyes, their movements a testament to family unity and enduring tradition. The image was vivid, tangible, shimmering silks, golden light, soft music, and her father's proud smile. It was to be a public declaration, a shared moment of triumph, a final grand dance on a global stage. But that promise, like so many fragments of her former life, now lay shattered, an exquisite mosaic broken by fate. Her spine, irrevocably altered, kept her bound to this elegant chair, an unwelcome, unmoving centerpiece in a world designed for soaring. Her father, Omar, once a tempest, was now a ghost in his own body, his booming presence reduced to a hand's tremor, his vibrant voice silenced by illness. The carefree couples, twirling and laughing on the distant dance floor, moved through a reality impossibly far from her own. Their effortless grace, their fluid steps, were a stark, painful contrast to her stillness. She saw the glittering smiles, the unburdened joy, and felt a profound ache. This was not the dance they had envisioned. This was not the legacy they had planned. Only the faint melancholic strains of Moon River carried on the oud pierced the gilded cage of her isolation, a poignant echo of a melody belonging to a vanished past, a promise unkept, lingering like a phantom limb, a beautiful dream lost in the heart of the royal majlis. Samira, her humble jilbab, a soft whisper against the opulent marble, stood beside Zara, a small silver tray balanced in one hand. Zara's brown eyes, dulled by the weight of unspoken grief, widened in surprise. She had not noticed Samira's approach, so accustomed had she become to being overlooked, a part of the grand scenery rather than a participant in its intricate dance. Samira's gaze, gentle yet unwavering, settled on the untouched array of rich dishes before Zara, the exquisite aromas now a distant memory. "Habibti," Samira murmured, her voice a low, comforting hum, a stark contrast to the cacophony of distant laughter. "You haven't touched a thing." With an almost imperceptible shift, Samira knelt, her movements fluid and graceful, despite the subtly visible prosthetic beneath her jilbab. She placed the small silver tray, laden with delicate date pastries dusted in pistachios, on the armrest of Zara's chair. The warmth of the dates, still fresh from the kitchen, offered a small, grounding anchor in the swirling currents of Zara's emotion. Zara stared at the sweet offerings, then at Samira's kind, lined face. It was an act of profound, unexpected compassion, a recognition of her quiet suffering that no one else in the glittering majlis had offered. A fragile tremor ran through Zara's hand as she slowly reached for a pastry. Her fingers, usually steady, now trembled slightly, betraying the depth of her stirred spirit. The pastry, rich with honey and dates, dissolved on her tongue, a taste of comfort in a world suddenly filled with sharp edges. Samira watched, her presence a silent, unwavering comfort, a beacon in the vast, indifferent hall. "You remind me of my Tasha," Samira continued, her voice soft as desert breeze, her eyes holding a distant, knowing light. Quiet, she was, like a desert flower waiting for the sun, but put her on a stage, and she became a storm. Zara looked up, a question forming in her expressive brown eyes, a flicker of something new, something almost like hope. The gentle cadence of Samira's words, the unexpected kindness, the quiet wisdom, began to chip away at the gilded cage of her isolation. The echoes of her father's waltz, though still melancholic, were now joined by a new, softer melody. The world had not stopped for her, but Samira, this unassuming woman, had paused, and in that pause had offered a taste of resilience, a whisper of a dance yet to begin, a rhythm waiting to be found in the quiet corners of her own heart. The royal majlis, for the first time, felt less like a tomb, and more like a space that held the fragile promise of a new dawn. The melancholic strains of Moon River still echoed in the gilded hall when a quiet rustle near her wheelchair broke the spell. Samira, her simple jilbab a soft whisper against marble, stood beside Zara, a small silver tray balanced in one hand. Zara's brown eyes, dulled by unspoken grief, widened in surprise. She had not noticed Samira's approach, so used was she to being overlooked, part of the grand scenery rather than a participant. Samira's gentle, unwavering gaze settled on the untouched array of dishes before Zara, the aromas now distant. "Habibti," Samira murmured, her voice a low, comforting hum above the laughter. "You haven't touched a thing." With an almost imperceptible shift, Samira knelt, movements fluid despite the prosthetic hinted beneath her jilbab. She placed the tray, date pastries dusted with pistachio, on the armrest. The warmth of the dates, still fresh from the kitchen, offered a small anchor in Zara's swirling emotion. Zara stared at the sweets, then at Samira's lined face. It was an act of unexpected compassion, a recognition of her quiet suffering that no one in the glittering majlis had offered. A tremor ran through Zara's hand as she reached for a pastry. The honeyed bite dissolved on her tongue, a comfort in a world of sharp edges. Samira watched, a silent, steady presence. "You remind me of my Tasha," Samira said, voice soft as desert air, eyes holding a distant light. Quiet like a desert flower waiting for the sun, but put her on a stage, and she became a storm. Zara looked up, a question forming in her eyes, a flicker of something like hope. Samira's cadence and quiet wisdom began to chip away at the gilded cage of her isolation. The echoes of her father's waltz, though still melancholic, were joined by a softer melody. The world had not stopped for her, but Samira had paused and offered a taste of resilience, a whisper of a dance yet to begin. For the first time, the royal majlis felt less like a tomb and more like a place that held the fragile promise of dawn. In a voice barely a breath, Zara confided the shattered promise. Her father had wanted to dance with her that night. "He wanted to dance, Samira," she whispered, her gaze sweeping the distant couples. "Now, this chair, his stroke." Samira's face remained serene. "Pity," she said, low and steady, "is a veil people wear when they forget to see. You, Habibti, are not a spectacle." She leaned closer, eyes bright with a quiet fire, and subtly shifted, revealing the sleek carbon fiber prosthetic beneath her jilbab. A knowing smile touched her lips. "I still dance, Zara. In my mind, in my heart, with every beat inside me." Zara truly saw her then, not a servant or a woman with a disability, but a conduit of hard-won wisdom. The realization opened a gap in her grief. If Samira, a tap dancer with a prosthetic, still found rhythm, what did that mean for Zara and her silent, yearning spirit? The majlis, with its oppressive splendor, began to shimmer with a different light. The clink of glasses and murmur of conversations no longer felt impenetrable, but a backdrop to a new internal symphony forming within her. The clink of glasses and murmur of conversations no longer felt impenetrable, but a backdrop to a new internal symphony forming within her. The Royal Majlis Quartet, almost as if sensing a shift in the very air, began a slower, more deliberate tune. It was an oud-led rendition of Moon River, the melody instantly familiar, yet imbued with a local melancholy that resonated deep within Zara's soul. Her heart, which had been a quiet chamber of grief, now began a slow, hesitant beat, a rhythm she recognized from countless New Year's Eves with her father. Samira, her eyes bright with a knowing twinkle, leaned closer. She murmured, her voice a soft invitation. Zara's breath caught. Hesitantly, she nodded, her expressive brown eyes searching Samira's. A silent promise passed between them. With a gentle, reassuring grip, Samira took Zara's trembling hands in hers. Their fingers intertwined, a fragile bridge between two worlds. Samira began to sway, a subtle, almost imperceptible movement, her shoulders mirroring a dancer's grace. Zara, guided by the warmth of Samira's touch and the steady rhythm of her mentor's movement, allowed her own shoulders to sway, her upper body responding to the familiar melody. It was not the grand waltz her father had envisioned, no soaring spins or sweeping turns, but it was a dance nonetheless. Their hands moved, a ballet of connection, their shoulders, a silent symphony of shared understanding. In that bustling, opulent hall, amidst the oblivious chatter and distant laughter, Zara and Samira danced, an unseen harmony, a promise kept in a new, profound way. The notes of Moon River wrapped around them, a golden thread weaving through the tapestry of their quiet rebellion. It was the first beat of a different kind of legacy, a whisper of a future where movement was defined not by legs, but by the undeniable pulse of the heart. Omar lay in his magnificent bed, a shadow of the once booming Sheikh, his presence dulled by medication and the ravages of his stroke. His eyes, once alive with fire and ambition, held a distant, clouded gaze. Najla, impeccably dressed as always, sat by his bedside, a silver tray with various vials and precise medical instruments before her. Her movements were sharp, efficient, each action a rigid adherence to protocol, a silent assertion of control over Omar's fragile existence. She barely acknowledged Zara's entrance, her attention entirely focused on adjusting the IV drip, her face a mask of professional detachment. The air in the suite was thick with the scent of antiseptic and old linen, a stark contrast to the lively fragrances of the majlis. Zara, usually intimidated by Najla's formidable presence, felt a quiet strength bloom within her, nourished by the hidden waltz of the previous night. She moved her wheelchair closer to her father's bed, taking his trembling, fragile hand in hers. His fingers, once strong enough to command an empire, now felt like delicate desert reeds. She pressed his hand gently, a silent conversation passing between them. Her gaze drifted to Najla, who stiffened almost imperceptibly, but Zara ignored her. She squeezed his hand again, a silent plea for understanding, for connection, for the echo of their shared rhythm. The fragile hope in her words hung in the air, a delicate bloom in the sterile quiet of the room, a challenge to the unspoken despair that had settled around Omar like a shroud. Her father's eyes, for a fleeting moment, seemed to focus, a flicker of something ancient and knowing stirring within their depths, a recognition of a beat he too understood. The sterile calm of her father's suite, where even hope felt muted, gave way to the vibrant chaos of the royal majlis, now undergoing its meticulous post-betrothal cleanse. Servants moved with hushed efficiency, their faces veiled in concentration as they restored order to the opulent space. Chairs were stacked, carpets rolled, and the lingering scent of oud mingled with the sharp tang of polishing agents. Zara, navigating her elegant wheelchair through the dwindling grandeur, felt a strange lightness, as if the heavy gold and ivory had shed some of their oppressive weight. Her expressive brown eyes scanned the vast hall, searching for a familiar figure amidst the blur of activity. She found Samira in a quieter alcove, near where the oud quartet had played, her humble jilbab a stark contrast to the shimmering backdrop. Samira moved with practiced grace, her hands, both calloused and elegant, rhythmically folding crisp white napkins into intricate fan shapes, each movement a small, precise dance. Zara wheeled closer, the soft whir of her chair barely audible over the distant clatter of china. Samira looked up, her deep brown eyes, usually alight with warmth, momentarily held a flicker of surprise, quickly veiled by her customary calm. Zara felt a surge of renewed curiosity, a hunger to witness the secret rhythm Samira carried within her. "Samira," Zara began, her voice soft but clear, "you said you were a tap dancer." A subtle hesitation touched Samira's lips. a brief shadow passing over her serene features. She glanced around the emptying hall, then back at Zara, a knowing twinkle returning to her eyes. With a quiet sigh, she set aside the stack of perfectly folded napkins. Samira reached down, her movements unhurried, and subtly adjusted the hem of her jilbab, revealing a glimpse of the sleek carbon fiber prosthetic that now served as her foot. It was a silent, unadorned revelation, a testament to her journey, devoid of self-pity or theatricality. She then straightened, her shoulders squaring with an understated dignity that transformed the half-cleaned majlis into her stage. Taking a deep breath, Samira began. The initial rhythm was soft, a series of delicate heel taps and toe shuffles that echoed across the polished marble, transforming the vast, empty space. The sound was surprisingly rich, a percussive whisper that filled the air. Then, with a shift in her posture, a slight tilt of her head, Samira's movements grew bolder, a signature triplet of heel, heel, toe, toe, heel, toe, blooming into a captivating beat. Her face, usually composed, now softened, her eyes briefly closing as if lost in a distant memory. She wasn't merely performing, she was channeling, remembering, allowing the rhythm to flow through her bones, a vibrant pulse that resonated with every beat of her heart. The majlis, once a symbol of Zara's gilded cage, now pulsed with a different kind of splendor, a living testament to Samira's unwavering spirit. Zara sat, transfixed, tears blurring her vision. The elegance, the raw emotion, the sheer defiance of Samira's dance was breathtaking. Each tap, each shuffle, was a story told, a memory reclaimed, a silent shout against the limitations others had imposed. It wasn't just a demonstration, it was an act of profound liberation. The rhythmic symphony filled the hollow spaces in Zara's heart, replacing her melancholic echoes with a vibrant, surging hope. A quiet wonder settled over her, a deep understanding blossoming in her soul. This was the movement Samira had spoken of, a dance that transcended the physical, a legacy defined by the unyielding spirit. The majlis, once indifferent, now felt alive, infused with the undeniable pulse of a heart that dared to move. The echoes of Samira's dance lingered, a bold declaration that altered Zara's view of herself and the gilded cage she inhabited. Movement was no longer mere motion, but a rebellion of the soul, proof of an inner life that would not be silenced. This legacy she wanted was not a public waltz with her ailing father, but an intimate, defiant dance of purpose. A new resolve sharpened within her. The quiet wonder settled into fierce determination. She would not only find her rhythm, she would make it resonate through the palace, shattering the protocols that bound so many. The majlis, once a gilded tomb, became a stage for inclusion. She extended a hand to Samira, who gently clasped it. The touch was an unspoken pact. Their journeys were only beginning. A sharp, authoritative cough cut the quiet. Najla stood at the alcove entrance, her abaya a dark shadow against the majlis. Her keffiyeh was flawless, her posture radiating untouchable authority. Her gaze swept their clasped hands, lingering on Samira. "Samira," Najla's voice was low and edged. "The cleaning of the royal antechambers requires your immediate attention." The implication was clear. Samira's place was service, not solidarity with the Sheikh's daughter. A familiar knot tightened in Zara's stomach. Najla's quiet control had long reinforced palace rules, but the memory of Samira's defiance surged through Zara, eclipsing fear. She would not let this connection, this hope, be extinguished, not after feeling that liberating pulse. Zara's grip on Samira's hand tightened almost imperceptibly, a silent signal. Her brown eyes, usually guarded, met Najla's with steady intensity. A quiet defiance bloomed. "Najla," Zara's voice was clear, a new melody in the majlis. It was not a plea, but a statement. "Samira will remain here." The words challenged Najla's order, a break from years of passive acceptance. Distant murmurs died. Stunned silence fell, punctuated only by the whir of Zara's wheelchair. Najla's composed features flickered with surprise. Her lips parted to retort, but Zara continued, her voice gaining force, a regal authority that echoed her father's presence. "I am reorganizing certain aspects of the Sheikh's affairs, beginning with this space." Samira possesses invaluable insights into the needs of all people, insights that will guide this transformation. Zara's gaze held Najla's, A silent battle of wills played out. The air crackled. Najla, unaccustomed to such direct challenge, wavered. The defiance was quiet, profound, a ripple through rigid protocols. It reclaimed voice, purpose, presence. The Majlis, once a stage for others, was now theirs, a canvas for a different kind of movement. This was more than a breach of protocol. It was the genesis of a world where the heart's rhythm dictated the dance. Zara, a desert rose unfurling against the wind, felt a quiet surge of power, a rhythm within her Najla's protocols could no longer fully suppress. As Najla turned, her structured abaya rustling like dry leaves, Zara knew this was not an end, but a tactical retreat. Control was Najla's breath. She would find another way to dim Zara's light. Days later, the palace hosted a private family dinner, ostensibly relaxed, in truth a display of tradition and hierarchy. The smaller dining salon, usually intimate, felt stifling with heavy velvet drapes and clinking silver. Omar, Zara's father, a ghost since the stroke, sat at the head, a muted echo of former grandeur. Najla presided with meticulous precision. Her obsidian eyes missed nothing. She directed staff with subtle gestures, her voice a low, silken hum that commanded obedience. Zara, in her kaftan, watched the familiar ballet of palace life, but kept searching for a face that had become her anchor. Samira was not among the circulating staff. The young men in crisp white thobes moved with practiced efficiency, offering platters of spiced lamb and couscous, but the quiet dignity and knowing warmth of Samira's presence were absent. A cold knot tightened in Zara's stomach. She caught the eye of Karim, an assistant whose cheerful demeanor now seemed veiled with unease. "Karim," she murmured, soft but firm. He hesitated, glancing toward Najla, who sipped spiced tea, satisfaction ghosting her lips. "Princess," he said low. "Samira, she's been reassigned." Heat flared in Zara. Reassigned. A euphemism, a veiled dismissal. Najla had used a quiet bureaucratic weapon to sever a growing connection. Her head tilted slightly as her eyes met Zara's across the table. A precise, almost imperceptible smile. No warmth, only calculation. A silent assertion of victory, a reminder of lines not to be blurred. Conversation blurred into a drone. The exquisite food, crystal, chandeliers lost luster, replaced by a cold, steady anger. Samira, who had seen her, heard her, shown her a new movement, was being relegated, silenced, pushed into shadows. Zara's fists clenched beneath the table, the kaftan fabric taut. This was more than reassignment. It aimed to extinguish a fragile hope. Conformity would be enforced, connection controlled. Yet Zara's spirit, once a quiet flower, now felt a deeper, defiant root. The warmth of Samira's hand, the echo of her tap, the shared vulnerability had forged an unbreakable rhythm beyond palace walls. Najla had won this skirmish, but the war for Zara's voice and legacy was far from over. As dinner ended, a new resolve propelled her. Ignoring lingering guests and unspoken decorum, Zara wheeled toward the staff entrance, her heart a drumbeat of determination, a silent promise. She would find Samira. The marble floors, once a testament to unchanging grandeur, now felt like a path to a different future. She pushed her chair with urgency. The wheels hummed against the dying strains of polite conversation, a counter-melody of fierce intent. The urgent hum of Zara's wheels cut through the hushed opulence, a stark counterpoint to the polite, dying murmurs. Her intent guided her toward the staff entrance, a portal to a world often unseen but now the only place that mattered. The labyrinthine corridors, usually a blur of uniformed figures, felt charged with purpose, a current of defiance against palace decorum. She passed kitchens with fading clatter and storerooms scented with spice, until a small, secluded alcove, usually overlooked, drew her gaze. There, among stacked linens and cleaning supplies, bathed in dim utilitarian light, sat Samira. She had shed the formal jilbab for a simple dress. Her leg, usually subtly concealed, lay bare. The sleek carbon fiber prosthetic rested beside her on the cool marble, a vulnerable testament to her journey. Her head tilted back against the wall, eyes closed, a rare, unguarded pause in the rhythm of service. The sight twisted Zara's stomach, Najla's cruelty washing over her, sharpened by Samira's quiet dignity. "Samira," Zara whispered, voice husky, the name a plea. Samira's eyes opened, dark and surprised, then softened. She sat up slowly, reaching instinctively for the prosthetic. "Princess Zara," she said, low, apologetic. Zara's fists clenched, kaftan fabric tightening. "Because Najla doesn't want me to see you?" The words, laced with unfamiliar venom, spilled out. "Tell me, Samira." Samira sighed, resignation in the sound. "People like Najla," she began, eyes drifting to the empty doorway as if Najla still watched. "Don't like the lines blurred between staff and guests. It disrupts their ordered world." Her gaze met Zara's, steady and wise. A hot surge coursed through Zara, igniting a new fire. "You're not just staff to me," she said firmly. "You're the only person here who sees me." As Samira reattached the prosthetic, the metallic click echoing, Zara felt renewed purpose. "Kindness, Habibti," Samira said, gentle as she adjusted the straps, "warms the heart, but it does not change policies or challenge traditions. For that, you need action." Zara leaned forward, eyes burning with resolve. "I want to help you," she said simply, a vow forged in the moment. "Tell me." Samira's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Meet me," she whispered conspiratorially, "tomorrow morning, before the first blush of dawn, on the palace's private garden terrace. We will speak then, Habibti." Zahra nodded, a promise exchanged without words. The alcove, once a symbol of Samira's diminished status, now felt like the genesis of a quiet revolution. The world of rigid protocol and veiled control would soon feel a tremor. This was not merely a secret meeting, but the forging of an alliance, a pact for a future where hearts, not status, dictated the dance, a new legacy unfolding in the pre-dawn hush. Anticipation thrummed beneath her skin, a counterpoint to the murmuring birds. Samira appeared, her simple jilbab a silhouette against the brightening sky, movements fluid and unhurried. Her deep brown eyes held a familiar warmth, a silent acknowledgement of the pact from the hidden alcove the night before. She carried nothing but her presence, a quiet strength. "Assalamu alaikum, Habibti," Samira murmured, her voice a low, comforting hum. She settled on a cushion on the cool tiles, facing Zara. Her prosthetic leg showed beneath the fabric, a testament to reclamation. The fountain's gurgle became their private symphony, its pulse joining the nascent beats in Zara's heart. Zahra's brown eyes, bright with new eagerness, mirrored Samira's posture. "Wa alaikum assalam," she replied, the greeting like a shared breath. Samira began with simple rhythms. She tapped her fingers on her knees, a steady beat, then clapped in a quiet, syncopated echo. "Feel it here," she said, guiding Zara's gaze to her chest. Zara, hesitant, mimicked her, fingers finding a tentative pattern on her kaftan-clad lap, palms meeting in a soft, uneven clap. Samira didn't correct, only encouraged, eyes twinkling with patient understanding. "Don't match me, Habibti. Match your own beat." The idea that true movement transcends physical ability settled like a warm truth. Day after day at dawn, they met in their secluded oasis. The garden became their studio, rustling leaves their audience, the fountain their percussion. Samira guided Zara's hands with the precision of a conductor, coaxing out a dormant melody. Zara learned to tap complex rhythms, to clap patterns, to hum ancient Arabic melodies that swelled with history and resilience. Movements once stiff and self-conscious gained new grace, an expression of her inner world. Tremors in her hands eased, replaced by control and a growing confidence that radiated from her eyes. Laughter, real and unburdened, echoed across the terrace. The joy of rediscovery, the exhilaration of creation, the sweet taste of purpose. Their bond deepened with each sunrise, a tapestry woven from shared vulnerability and unspoken understanding. Samira became more than a mentor. She was a confidant who saw beyond the gilded cage and the wheelchair to the vibrant soul within. Zara began to understand the quiet strength and enduring wisdom beneath Samira's humble exterior. They spoke of memories, loss, dreams. Their voices mingled with the morning breeze. Palace politics, Najla's veiled threats and rigid protocols felt distant, a fading shadow against the light of their connection. Zara unfurled like a resilient desert rose, finding beauty and strength in her circumstances, learning that movement was of the spirit as much as of the body, a legacy to be lifted, not left, a truth Samira embodied. One morning, as Zara spun her wheelchair in a gentle pirouette, arms arcing to an imagined melody. A jarring sound cut the air, the insistent beep of an approaching vehicle, tires crunching on gravel. Alien and unwelcome, it shattered the delicate symphony of their secret world. Samira's head snapped up, her easy smile vanishing, eyes narrowing with apprehension. The peaceful sanctuary, bathed in gold, felt exposed, its quiet magic vulnerable to the palace's structured life. The rhythm they had nurtured was abruptly broken, leaving an uneasy silence in its wake. The insistent beep of an approaching vehicle, tires crunching on gravel, shattered the delicate symphony of their secret world. Samira's head snapped up, her easy smile vanishing, eyes narrowing with apprehension. The peaceful sanctuary, bathed in gold, felt exposed, its quiet magic vulnerable to the palace's structured life. The rhythm they had nurtured was abruptly broken, leaving an uneasy silence in its wake. Najla, her severe features a testament to her unyielding adherence to protocol, stepped from the vehicle, her structured abaya a stark silhouette against the rising sun. Her gaze, sharp and critical, swept across the terrace, landing on Zara and then on Samira, with an almost imperceptible tightening around her lips. Behind her, two stern-faced palace guards stood at attention, their presence a silent, undeniable assertion of authority. The air, once filled with the promise of a new day, now crackled with an unspoken tension, thick and suffocating. Zara felt a cold knot twist in her stomach, the sudden intrusion a harsh reminder of the boundaries Najla constantly sought to enforce. Samira, ever composed, rose from her cushion, her movements graceful even in her apprehension, her eyes a silent communication to Zara. Discretion was paramount. "Princess Zara," Najla's voice was clipped, devoid of warmth. "I trust you are aware of the early morning schedule. There are urgent matters requiring your attention within the majlis." And Samira, her voice dropped to a low, silken whisper that carried a hidden threat. "Your duties require your immediate presence elsewhere." The guard shifted, a subtle movement that underscored the finality of Najla's words. Zara's fists clenched, her kaftan fabric tightening over her knuckles. The injustice of it, the calculated cruelty, ignited a fierce, protective fire within her. She met Najla's gaze, her own brown eyes flashing with a defiance that surprised even herself. This was not merely about Samira's reassignment. It was about the insidious control Najla wielded, the way she sought to extinguish any spark of genuine connection, any deviation from the rigid script of palace life. The rhythmic tap of Samira's prosthetic, usually a quiet echo of resilience, felt muted, threatened. "Najla," Zara's voice was steady, a clear bell in the heavy silence. "Samira's presence here is at my request." The words were a gamble, a direct challenge to Najla's authority, yet they felt right, propelled by the burgeoning rhythm in Zara's soul. Najla's composure wavered, a fleeting flicker of surprise crossing her face before she regained her mask of authority. Her gaze lingered on Samira, a silent warning, but Zara held her ground, her resolve hardening with each beat of her defiant heart. The sun, now fully risen, cast a golden glow over them, illuminating the silent battle of wills, a testament to the fragile hope that had begun to bloom in the heart of the palace. The day's confrontation with Najla had ignited something unyielding. Merely existing was no longer enough. She craved more than quiet rebellion. She wanted profound change. That evening she stood in Omar's private suite, the scent of antiseptic mingling with the fading oud on his garments. Her father, the once booming Sheikh, lay in his great bed, a fragile figure beneath heavy silk. His eyes, often clouded, held moments of startling clarity, glimpses of the formidable mind that had shaped empires. Najla, ever vigilant, had finished her ministrations and left a neat array of vials and charts on the table, her efficiency a chilling reminder of control. Zara approached the bedside, the whir of her wheelchair a soft counterpoint to the hush. She took his trembling hand. His skin was parchment thin beneath her fingers. The unspoken connection between them, born of shared history and recent sorrow, pulsed in the quiet. From her phone she chose a melody, low and sweet. Moon River filled the room like a tender memory. Their song, the soundtrack to countless New Year's waltzes, a promise of movement and joy now fractured. Zara squeezed his hand, eyes fixed on his beloved face. "Baba," she whispered, voice a thread of resolve. I will find Samira. And when I do, we will dance again, not in a quiet corner, but with the whole world watching. As the melody swelled, a faint tremor ran through Omar's fingers, an almost imperceptible twitch Zara read as endorsement, a flicker of his warrior spirit acknowledging her fight. She realized his legacy lived not only in what he built, but in the courage he'd instilled, dreams he had once danced into her. This was not a plea for approval, but a declaration of purpose, a vow into the patriarch's heart. Later, in her chambers with the music still echoing, Zara sat at her desk. The parchment felt cool beneath her hand, a canvas for the revolution stirring inside. She wrote not with fury, but with controlled passion, each word deliberate against the palace's rigid tapestry. Her letter to the Royal Council of Elders, guardians of ancient protocol, argued that dignity is an inherent right, compassion the truest strength, and inclusion the recognition that rhythm lives in every soul. She made a clear, powerful case for Samira, a plea for justice woven with logic and undeniable truth, a blueprint for a future guided by empathy. At dawn, she found Saif, the family's legal advisor, in the formal study. She placed the sealed letter in his hands. Its weight felt immense. Saif's usually sharp eyes softened as he met hers and offered a knowing, almost proud nod. "This," she said, voice steady, "will make waves." The resolve in her tone left no doubt. She had found her anchor and her compass, a silent drumbeat of change poised to echo through the gilded halls and beyond. Saif, the family's astute legal advisor, stood before her, his usually impassive face creased with a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in expression. He held a small, ornately sealed scroll, the official decree of the Royal Council of Elders. The weight of Zara's letter, handed to him at dawn, had indeed made waves, stirring the ancient waters of palace protocol. He informed her, his voice measured, that her plea for dignity and compassion had resonated, causing a stir of unexpected debate amongst the guardians of tradition. Samira's employment status, once summarily dismissed by Najla, was now under urgent review, with a strong possibility of reinstatement. A fragile hope, like a desert bloom pushing through cracked earth, unfurled within Zara's heart. Encouraged by this initial, hard-won victory, Zara's mind, once confined by the gilded cage of her isolation, now soared with a grander vision. She enlisted the help of Basim, the young and eager palace assistant, whose infectious enthusiasm mirrored her own burgeoning resolve. Together, they meticulously began to plan something monumental, a concept far grander than a simple performance. The Majlis, that opulent hall once a symbol of her confinement, would be transformed into a stage for inclusive dance, a vibrant celebration of every soul's unique rhythm. Basim, with his quick mind and ready smile, embraced the challenge, sketching designs, calculating logistics, his pen flying across parchment with a newfound purpose. Zara, a conductor of this quiet revolution, guided his hand, her expressive brown eyes alight with a fierce, unwavering determination. This was not merely about art, it was about altering perception, about shattering the rigid protocols that had long dictated who belonged and who was overlooked. Their conversations, initially whispered in secluded alcoves, soon moved to the sun-drenched garden terrace, their sanctuary of shared dreams. Basim, with Zara's direction, began to envision ramps and accessible platforms seamlessly woven into the traditional decor, ensuring every corner of the majlis would welcome all. They discussed lighting that would highlight motion, not just status, and music that would draw from ancient Arabic melodies, yet pulse with a contemporary universal beat. The Royal Council's wavering, a crack in Najla's unyielding control, had offered a fleeting window of opportunity, and Zara intended to throw it wide open. She saw beyond the performance. She saw a movement, an awakening, a profound redefinition of legacy itself. The air, once thick with Najla's silent assertions of power, now hummed with the electric anticipation of possibility, a promise whispered between Zara and Basim, carried on the gentle desert breeze, a silent prelude to a public declaration that would echo through the gilded halls and far beyond. Golden light spread across tiled paths and dew-kissed date palms, painting the stone amber and rose. Zara, in her wheelchair, weighted by a marble fountain, The cool mist brushed her face, the gentle gurgle a quiet balm. Anticipation thrummed beneath her skin, a counterpoint to the murmuring birds and jasmine air. Samira appeared, her simple jilbab a silhouette against the brightening sky, movements fluid and unhurried. Her deep brown eyes held a familiar warmth, a silent acknowledgement of the pact from the hidden alcove the night before, a thread stronger than any decree. She carried nothing but her presence, a quiet strength that settled around Zahra like a cloak. "Assalamu alaikum, habibti," Samira murmured, her voice a low, comforting hum that fit the land's old rhythms. She settled on a cushion on the cool tiles, facing Zahra, her prosthetic leg visible beneath the fabric, a testament to reclamation and resilience. The fountain's gurgle became their private symphony, its pulse joining Zahra's heart. Zahra's brown eyes, bright with new eagerness, mirrored Samira's calm. "Wa alaikum assalam," she replied, the greeting a shared breath, a whispered communion. Samira began with simple rhythms. She tapped her fingers on her knees, a steady beat, then clapped a quiet, syncopated echo. "Feel it here," she said, guiding Zahra's gaze to her chest, tapping over her own heart. Zahra, hesitant, mimicked her, fingers finding a tentative pattern on her kaftan-clad lap, palms meeting in a soft, uneven clap. Samira didn't correct, only encouraged, eyes twinkling with patient understanding. "Don't match me, Habibti. Match your own beat." The idea that true movement transcends the body settled like a warm truth within Zahra, shifting her sense of self. Day after day, as the sun kissed the horizon, they met in their secluded oasis. The garden became their studio, rustling leaves their audience, the fountain their percussion. Samira guided Zahra's hands with quiet precision, coaxing out a dormant melody. Zahra learned to tap complex rhythms, clap intricate patterns, hum ancient Arabic melodies that swelled with history and resilience. Movements that had been stiff and self-conscious gained effortless grace, an authentic expression of her inner world. The tremors in her hands eased, replaced by control and a radiant confidence that shone from her eyes. Laughter, real and unburdened, echoed across the terrace, the joy of rediscovery, the exhilaration of creation, the sweet taste of purpose. Their bond deepened with each sunrise, a tapestry of shared vulnerability and unspoken understanding. Samira became more than a mentor. She was a confidant who saw beyond the gilded cage and the wheelchair to the vibrant soul within. Zahra learned the quiet strength and enduring wisdom beneath Samira's humble exterior, recognizing a resilience that defied judgment. They spoke of cherished memories, of loss and of dreams, voices mingling with the morning breeze. Palace politics, Najla's veiled threats and rigid protocols that once suffocated Zahra receded, fading shadows against the light of their connection. Zahra unfurled like a desert rose, finding unexpected beauty and strength, learning that movement is of the spirit as much as the body, a legacy to be lifted, not merely accepted, a truth Samira embodied with every gesture. One morning, as Zahra spun her wheelchair in a gentle pirouette, arms arcing to an imagined melody, a jarring sound cut the air, the insistent beep of a vehicle, tires crunching on the gravel path to the terrace. The sound was alien and unwelcome, shattering the delicate symphony of their secret world. Samira's head snapped up, her easy smile gone, eyes narrowing with palpable apprehension. The peaceful sanctuary, bathed in soft dawn light, felt exposed, its quiet magic vulnerable to the palace's unyielding life. The rhythm they had nurtured was broken, leaving an uneasy silence, a chilling reminder of the external world poised to intrude.